While you're there, please take a few seconds to sign up for my email list. You'll get some extremely valuable educational and entertaining content that can be sent right to your inbox each week. Plus, you'll also get instant and free access to my guide on managing your anxiety. You can also follow me on Twitter at MOC with Tiffany and at Facebook at Tiffany Warner. And once again, the website is momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening to your show, because change can only come when we stand together as one.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
We are back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Warner. To join in the discussion, call 866-826-1340. Now, here's Tiffany Warner.
Hi, welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Moments of Clarity. My name is Tiffany Warner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And today we're talking about domestic violence. We're talking about trauma, post-traumatic stress, and all sorts of things. And so it might be a trigger for some listeners, and I want to just warn you of that. But my guest today is a published author of When the Dust Settled, and he is a survivor of domestic violence, and he's speaking up to help others survive, recover, and heal. And welcome back to Moments of Clarity, Joe Potosi.
Thank you so much.
So, Joe,
I appreciate this.
No, I'm honored that you're here. And I want to welcome callers to call in 866-826-1340 if you want to join our live discussion. It's 866-826-1340. And Joe, before we went to the break, you were about to talk about some parts of your book, of what you went through. And as long as you don't use profanity, we can talk about anything.
Well, then I can't do it. No. Sure, but, as you may know by reading the book, I was longing for my dad to come back. From time to time, my cousins, my mother's nieces, and nephews would come to Rockford, and this is when I realized just how serious this domestic, the crap getting beat out of her was. They're all at the apartment and drinking, and I'm not sure what set my stepdad off, but he was stomping her face. He had boots on. He was stomping her in her face, and it was really freaking scary. And nobody stepped in. There was people from the neighborhood, other men. I think 2 or 3 guys may take that many to get him off of her, but they would have jumped in, but they didn't. And that's when my heart sank even more. That's even possible. So we eventually got out of the projects. My stepdad did not work, but he sure had enough money for booze and weed. He would drink a 5th B&J brandy a day. And the fact that he would beat my mom a couple times a week remained the same. You can almost count on your hand what day it would be, time of night, time of day or whatever. But he got into this pattern. And as I said before, domestic violence doesn't just affect the husband or the wife. It affects the children.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Especially the kids, too.
Yeah. So this
witnessing abuse is just as bad as receiving it at times.
Right. What he would do, he would beat her up really bad, physically beat her up. And I could hear him coming into my bedroom. And so I was already afraid of him beyond measure. I was so still, I stopped breathing. I pretended like I was dead. And he pulled my blanket back and he said, "Hey, boy, I want you to screw your mother." And he threw her in my bed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And she's just wailing. And it's beyond me why my kid brothers didn't wake up, especially my brother Martin, who was in the same bedroom. But he didn't. None of them did. My stepdad went upstairs, and then my mom, this refrain, "I'm going to die in your arms tonight. I'm going to die." I'm in 5th grade.
Wow.
And I put my head to her chest to make sure I could hear her heart. And, that pattern, it didn't go on forever, but it went on enough that it really, really messed me up.
I bet.
About the whole the father beating the mom or the wife, and the kids see that and they lose respect for the father. Well, my mother expected me to be both a father and a brother to my brothers.
Yeah.
She wanted me to take the place of my dad and stepdad because my dad was there physically when he wasn't out running the street, selling dope, doing what he did. His sons emulated me. They talked like me, acted like me, and whenever their dad was upset with me or my mother, there was hell to pay for the littlest things. So now this is going to sound crazy, Tiffany, and to the audience as well. And I don't know what you call it, but I just need people to understand something. So at this point in my life, I can't trust my mother or my father or my stepfather. And the adults in the neighborhood that I thought I could trust, I can't trust because they're going to say something to me or try to do something to me that's going to hurt me physically, emotionally, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my brother Greg, he had this friend named Jack. Jack was his imaginary friend. But Jack was really cool. And I believe in Jack. Because Jack didn't hurt me. Jack didn't try to do things to sabotage or to hurt my mom or to make things even worse. And before I said that, my daily companions were depression, although I didn't know that's what it was, sadness, angst. I was just always walking on eggshells. I was terrified to go home after school or whatever. But this guy Jack was really, really cool. And I wanted to believe in something. My dad isn't coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not coming back.
And your environment was toxic. And a lot of kids have an imaginary friend when they're in an abusive home. Hang on, Joe. We have some callers waiting. We have Kenny waiting. Hi, Kenny. First time calling in.
Tiffany.
How are you?
How are you?
Welcome to Moments of Clarity.
2%, so let's see how long we can go. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks. Thanks for calling in. How can we help, or what do you have to share?
Okay, my story is sort of similar to his. What's his name again? I'm sorry?
Joe Potosi.
Yeah, my story is very similar to Joe. I was like physically, I was physically hit as a child. But luckily for me, I've always been backwards from everything. I'm against violence. But most people who are violent as an adult were physically beaten as a kid. So there's that chain that you talk about that,
Not always, but history does tend to repeat itself.
Yes. They're like learned behaviors. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about, a lot of people, and I'm not like that either because I grew up in a very toxic situation, but I try and avoid it in my life. Though most people who are from that, they don't want to be in a toxic situation, but they don't know how to deal with a good situation. And when they get in one, they kind of run from it or turn it into a toxic situation, so then they know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Right. Kenny, I'm sorry about what you went through as a kid. Thank you for sharing, and I really appreciate that. So, to his point, when I was a kid, when I would see how my mom was beaten and thrown around the room like a rag doll, me and my sister, being kids, there was a bunch of times me and her would actually get into a fight with each other, and I would not hit my sister. And essentially, she beat the crap out of me. And it sucked. It wasn't fun, but I can tell you, it's because I saw how my mom was treated, how she was beaten, and I couldn't bring myself to put my hands on my sister or any other girl. And to who we are today, I'm a strong advocate. Like women should never ever be abused,
right.
and that way ever. There's no excuse for it. So 15 years of going through this scenario, the domestic violence that we were living with and the abuse that took place, most kids, I would have gave up. I had thoughts of suicide, but my motivation and my drive to be there for my sister and brothers is what got me through and how I persevered. And Kenny said something about learned behavior. And this is the thing. I was so afraid of being a father because of just that thing, learned behavior. You're going to talk to your children the way you were talked to. You're going to treat your wife the way you saw your mother treat you, because that's what you know. Mm-hmm. And but essentially what I can say to you today is I've never batted my wife. We've gotten arguments, most definitely, but it never ever became physical, not even nothing at all close to that. And I broke my cycle of abuse with my children. I have two sons, 18 and 20. 19 and 20. And it's that I guess I wanted them to have what I never had, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear how it affected me kind of in a backwards way?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is being that I used to fight and get hit with, and it was my mom, right? In my relationships with girls and how many I've had, right? And I've been in love a few times with a lot of great girls. We would never fight in that I wouldn't want to fight with them. I mean, we get into some disagreements, but if it would get like really loud, I would try and stop it from happening because I would equate that to the situation that I grew up with. Mm-hmm. And that's like a bad situation if you can't fight verbally and sometimes heatedly with the person that you're with. You're in a lot of trouble because who you're going to yell and fight with, you know what I mean? You're like suppressing a lot of feelings you need to. And I would say that was my fault in the relationships that I was in, is that I wouldn't verbally have these arguments with the girl I was in love with. Does that make any sense to you?
You wouldn't verbally, you didn't want to fight with them verbally?
Yes, I didn't want to verbally get into these arguments because it reminded me of what I went through as a child. I didn't want to relive that.
Right, it's probably from the trauma, the post-traumatic.
Right,
stress.
now that's a problem for two things. Is one, you're not expressing what you need to express to the girl and your partner. And I'm telling you, I never had makeup sex, which you would always hear about. I never did because I'd be too upset. I would never want to, because there was also sexual abuse too. So that I equated it with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it's never productive to yell at each other, any relationship or any family thing. For most people.
Well, if you don't use bad words, I mean, you could raise your voice, but not say things that are hurtful.
Right.
I mean, when you get upset, your voice is going to get louder and more intense. Mm-hmm. It's going to elevate, but that doesn't mean you have to use curse words or derogatory terms to the other person. You can keep it, you can keep the language okay, but the intensity of the situation can go up. But you would hope to end the discussion in a positive way. Mm-hmm. My positive way of ending the discussion was to stop arguing. There's a better way to end that discussion, which I never did. And that's, I'm going to say it again. I don't think it's politically incorrect. Makeup sex, you always hear about it. It's like I never did that because I couldn't do that.
Well, I agree with Tiffany. I mean, having fidelity matches is not healthy or good for anyone. And I believe never go to bed angry or with issues unresolved, because from experience, I know the next day rolls around and this is on your mind, and you need the answers. You didn't even talk about it, try to work through it. It affects you. At least it affects me in that way.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're traumatized as a kid and with an abusive home. any loud noise or confrontation could